Hello and welcome to the Cheese Room podcast on a Wednesday night. Great to be back as ever. I am your host, James the Drinker. To my right, there is a lovely man residing in Austria. It's HG. Welcome, HG. How's your day been?
I'm glad you said it was a name because lovely man in Austria doesn't usually mean me, but I'm okay. It's just bloody hot here. I don't know if it's been all of Europe that's had this kind of heat wave, but we are struggling manfully as Brits in this terrible sunshine. But yeah, I'm all right. Yeah.
Splendid to hear. And someone I've never spoken to before, Jim. Welcome to the show. How's your day been?
Thank you very much, James. Pleasure to be on and lovely to meet you.
Thank you very much. Well, usually I don't hear those words in that order, so that's splendid. It's usually, so you're causing a disturbance, please leave. Anyway, so first of all, we're going to talk about Andrew's comments on Kane. Came out today. So HG, have you seen those? What do you think about them?
And I saw what he said at the press conference yesterday, but I haven't seen anything from today. What's?
Oh, it might be yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talked about how he didn't want to come to some kind of understanding. And he wanted, I'm assuming, just to be like, this is what I want, what do you want? Rather than, let's find a concession that neither one of us are happy with. So if that's the situation, then great, because we need to find a solution to whatever the issue is. And it looks like they're both willing to work towards that solution. It may not help Spurs this season, but it'll help Spurs at some point if they come to some kind of arrangement for what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. You on the same page, Jim?
Yeah, I really liked the way he's treated the situation. So I like how Ange's coming with the approach of, it's kind of a different approach to what Conte and Mourinho have taken with Kane. They came in and kind of tried to do this. You're going to be a superstar if you stick with me. I'm going to turn you into that kind of messy bracket if you stick around. Whereas Ange feels more like, this club's going to go in a very special direction. I'm not here to change your mind whether you want to be here or not. But I'd love it if you stayed, but that's up to you. It's kind of a much more kind of like, I think it creates an aura that the club is bigger than the player. And I way prefer that approach than this kind of overly insular focus on Harry, making him the be all and end all of our success in the upcoming season. It's nice to see someone elevate the club kind of back above him whilst also getting the balance right. So it still makes Harry feel important and still kind of gives that impression to Harry that if he does stay, he's still a key part of it.
Yeah, it's like if we look at last season, I mean, Harry had one of his best years at Spurs and we finished 8th. So you're right, it isn't just about Harry. Like, Harry can play fantastically well and Spurs not do so well. And so as much as we're all grateful to him for what happened last year, because obviously we'd be much worse off without him, it does feel as if maybe with Ange in charge, our baseline is going to improve regardless of what happens with Kane. We won't be the 12th or 13th best side because of, if we take Kane out of the team, we'll be much higher than that. So, yeah, we're all sitting here with hope, right? None of us really know what's going to happen, but it is, like it feels like we have a man in charge and not a spoiled child, frankly.
Yeah. And it also feels like, and there's a lot of fear around the losing Harry, but I think what last year showed is you can have the best striker in the world playing at the peak performance in your team and still finish 8th. But I'd argue if we had Richarlison up front all season, but had a good second centre-back and a good goalkeeper, would have probably finished higher in the table than we did last year, even with Harry. So it just goes to show that we have got such an opportunity to improve our weaker positions, which we've already done and rumoured to be doing at centre-back now. And if we maintain, another season with Harry, it's really exciting what we could achieve next year.
Yeah, I have to agree, actually. The other big news from yesterday, well, I'd say big news. Solomon has officially signed for us. Jim, what do you think about him?
I think it's just one of those sensible signings. I don't get the whole kind of outrage on Twitter that you always get about these things because he's free. That makes it a massive... Well, he's technically not quite free, is he? He cost us a stadium's worth of cheap tickets for one game. But he just makes sense because we clearly feel we need that depth and we didn't want to keep Danjuma. It looks like, Brian Hill might go out on loan. We're going to play this high press system where the players are going to need to be rotated a lot more. So Son's going to need to come off a bit more often. And Kulusevski had a few injury problems last year. So why not beef out the squad with a free transfer who can play on either side and got great work ethic, which what Ange wants in his wide players as well. So it just seems to tick all the boxes. He's not there to be an upgrade on Son. He's not there to be an upgrade on Kulusevski. So I don't see why people would have an issue with it. It hasn't taken any money out of the transfer budget either. It just makes sense.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I remember saying this last week. If we paid 50 million for him, then the discourse would be completely different. It would be that we were competing with the big teams, spending the money. But because he's free, somehow he must be a worse player.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to kind of treat it as a situation of, well, what would he have been valued at had he been under contract, right? You're talking about someone who's, 23. He's played Premier League football for a season. He was in the Champions League with Shakhtar for a couple of years before that. Like, he's played elite level football for a while. And if you're looking for someone who's 23, I mean, that's got to be around the age we bought Son in the first place. So we're probably saving, I don't like using that word, but we are probably saving, 20, 25 million quid on this guy who did score in the Premier League and looked like he knew what he was doing when he scored. They weren't, in off his shin. They were quality finishes.
Yeah.
And so, I understand that, Jim, you talked about us, we're trying to sign players that we need, and we did that with Maddison, and we're looking at centre-backs, and no one looks at Solomon and thinks, oh, he's a real need in the squad. But for a freebie, what does it matter? It's a low-risk, high-reward. If it doesn't work out after 2 seasons, you can probably sell him for 15 million quid. So there's no negative to it, really.
No.
Apart from it doesn't work out and we make a bit of money. But it does seem odd. And the fact that he clearly has a relationship with the club from his childhood, knows a lot about Spurs, was thrilled to sign for us. Yeah, I don't know what people are expecting. I think a lot of people would have said, well, we want to sign Ndicka, we want to sign Kamada because they're also on free transfers. So clearly fans are, they go along with the idea of, we want to sign free transfers. So what is the deal? Is that he played for Fulham? I don't know where the negativity would come. And I understand, that it's with Brian and with Perisic and with Son, we've got a whole bunch of players who could do that, but we're looking for a different type of player now.
Yeah.
Well, he's played for the Israeli national team since he was an under 16. He's played 35 games for them, which for a 23-year-old, that's quite impressive. I mean, I get it's not exactly like playing for the English national team necessarily.
Yeah.
But it's still impressive. He's an international who has Premier League experience. I mean, I hate that phrase, but he's got European experience. I don't see the downside here, despite
he's won titles in his domestic league and all that as well. I know we kind of have this chip on our shoulder when we support Premier League teams that, unless you've done it in Premier League and maybe La Liga and Serie A, you're not worthy of the Premier League. You need to prove you've got to step up, and you're just some kind of cheap option that hasn't proven it themselves at the top level. But I don't really buy that. Model professionals win things and they push themselves to be at the top of the game. And he's consistently performed really, really well in his league, earned his time at Fulham and done a good job there. So, he's I'm sure a club that got promoted would love him and he'd be a star player in their side. Aren't those the kind of players you want as just a squad option when you're in the top 4? You're blessed that you can have a star player from the bottom half of the league just filling the bench for your team in the top half. So I think we're lucky to grab him.
Yeah, and he would have played a lot more for Fulham had he not been injured for the first half of last season. Spurs fans would know a lot more about him. And I always thought it was funny when people said, well, who is this guy? I'm like, he played against Spurs. It's not as if we didn't watch him play. He did play against Spurs. So, it's you hope it will work out. Of course, we all hope it will work out, but we don't have to worry about it hamstringing. Hamstringing? Is that a verb? About that kind of hurting the club later on, like maybe an Ondebele and Lo Celso deal has done. We won't have that with Solomon. It is basically literally a free plus wages hit.
And as Adrian said in the comments, he was saying that he scored against City and Real Madrid. So, it shows he can play in big games and perform. I'm quite looking forward to him.
Someone out there is looking for the world's worst player who has scored against Man City and Real Madrid. There has got to be someone out there who's thinking.
If you can find out who the worst player of all time is who has scored against both Man City and Real Madrid, put it in the comments.
I'm trying to think who's done it for Spurs.
To you.
Yeah, I was going to say we've got the Man City one ticked off for the last 5 years. You must have some pretty crappy players who've scored against them.
Yeah, who have we had? Who scored against Real when we beat them 3? Was that Ericsson,
Dele? Yeah.
Did you get 2? I forget. I don't.
No, Dele's got to be up there in today's Dele, right?
Yeah, it's true. Anyway, sorry, James.
Yeah.
Digression. Well, no, it's okay. There isn't a lot of new news coming out, so if you have any questions, please do put them in the comments, rather, not on the comments, and we will try get to them. Because not a lot of content going. Sorry.
I was going to say, there's talking of leaking content. I've seen there's quite a lot of rumours going around about Liberty Media buying a stake in Spurs as well at the moment. Don't know if we had that on the agenda, but I wasn't sure of the quality of the source.
I mean, are they just trying to look at because they're linked with F1, right? Like, do they own F1 completely? They bought it from Ecclestone, so they've obviously done well at managing the brand of F1. I mean, we've got Steve in our little cheese room group who likes to think he knows a little bit about all of that and has mentioned that it's more of a brand thing. I know that they own Atlanta Braves and the Braves won stuff, but I don't know if I can look at them and think they know what it takes to put Spurs to the next level, to whatever level we want to be at. But a lot of people are just happy that there are people being linked with us, whether it's investment or buying us out or whatever. So we'd all like to see a bit more money. Even if it's not spent on players and if it's just to lower ticket prices. But we'd like to see a bit more money coming in to help the club.
Yeah.
And why not?
Yeah. I think Spurs fans, just whether it makes sense or not, we all crave to be that club just once in a transfer window that just goes absolutely mad and just buys stupidly expensive footballers. They don't care if they're overflated in price. And we're just the ones who are we're like, having to extend our changing room because we bought too many people. And when we go up to a club and they say he's 80 million, we go, here's 100. I think everyone just wants us to behave like that once. And there's excitement that a takeover of the Liberty Media style, because it would be a similar setup to Todd Bowley. I think it's what's got people excited. He's worth about 8 billion, as I understand it, the guy who runs that. But he's looking to pair up with various other VC firms and funds that basically would give Spurs a kind of endless coffer of money in the short term to kind of completely kick us forward.
Do you know, it's like, I'm not being funny. If I had that kind of money or had access to that kind of money, I would still be looking to make a return on the investment. Like, as much as I'm a Spurs fan and I would love to have that money to buy Spurs, it is awkward when I'm thinking, there've got to be other clubs. Like, I mean, obviously we have the NFL thing, which is massive. For any American investor, that is a huge, huge part of the attraction for Spurs. But it is interesting. I'm like, if you did what the Saudis did and you picked a different club and you paid 300 million for the club, and then within 18 months you've got them in the Champions League. Like, as awful as that is as a Spurs fan to hear those words being true, it's still, I don't know. Like, I want someone to do it, so please, if someone can. But it is interesting because I'm not sure I would be advising it. But anyway, I'll stop.
I do definitely want someone to do it, and if this group can do it and be successful, that'd be brilliant. As opposed to signing everyone Todd Bowley's heard about in the news and signed them, regardless of whether or not the manager wants them or if they fit a team. But I digress. I suppose the issue with Spurs for one of these groups as a long-term investment is I don't think there's much room to grow the club's commercial revenue beyond what ENIC have done and are doing. I feel like we're close to that ceiling. I mean, obviously, the area where there's a ceiling we can reach is on the football pitch. So if anyone has a lot of money, like Spurs out there, and doesn't care about getting a return on their investment, please do buy Spurs.
Like Gov puts a good point here, but when City, when they had their money at the start and they couldn't get the Champions League because one of their first seasons we beat them to fourth, right? That was a big thing. Which one of us was going to get there first? Because City were throwing money at the problem, and Spurs had grown, somewhat organically at least. But you think about those players that City first bought, and it was like Robinho didn't work out.
Yeah,
I think they spent another 30 million on Joe. Do you remember Joe, the big Brazilian striker that didn't work out? So and they got Company for 7 million. And he was the captain for 10 years. So it's one of those things that yes, we need to spend money, and we would want to spend it correctly, but getting it right. I don't think that anyone at Man City thought that Company would probably go on and be the player he was. Do you know what I mean? It's a weird one.
And it's funny with that because, like, you could argue he was their best player of the decade, and for the fee they paid for him, he was certainly by no means the most expensive. And I kind of feel like that kind of rings true with with a lot of clubs when you look at who their star players are over a long period of time. I'd rather we took the approach of having a super smart recruitment model where all the clubs who can't go out there and just pluck out the ready-made, easy to see options of the superstars, but we're the richest of that group and we're the most well-run of that group. So we get first choice out of all the upcoming stars and players before they've signed for a Real Madrid and they're just an unattainable player. I'd kind of rather we perform next. We're never going to, in our current state, financially compete with Manchester City going toe for toe for the same player. So I almost feel, what's the point in going into that fight?
To derail what was being said, interestingly, there seems to be a lot more rumours, admittedly, in the nose, which are usually rubbish, that Mickey, I'm going to call him Mickey, deal is very close now. So what do we think about... Oh, we can call him Big Mick. What do we think about Big Mick? That's brilliant.
Is that going to stick?
Yes, it will. I'm
All right, fine. To me, this time last season, people were umming and ahhing about spending 30 million on Botman, and we didn't really know much about him. And we all thought that's quite a lot of money for some youngster that we don't really know. Obviously, it worked out for them at Newcastle. They spent the money and they got him, and they've been really good. Van der Ven is basically the same. None of us can sit here and say that we've watched lots of Wolfsburg games, but we've seen that Wolfsburg as a defence were pretty good last season, that he was a massive part of that. And yeah, maybe, the comment here from Adrian suggests that he may not be the best partner for Romero. Maybe not. But I feel as if we definitely need something like that. We've still Arsenal take a bunch of what looked like at the time gambles on players. They bought Gabriel for a similar amount of money from the French league, and no one really knew anything about him. They've done the same with Ødegaard. As much as he'd been there on loan, I don't think anyone really thought, yes, we really want to go out there and get him. And yet now he's their captain. So it is about somewhat calculated risks, which I think Van der Ven would be. But we, as Jim just said, we don't have the money to go out and buy the best, the Josko Gvardiol. We can't do that. Man City will go and get him. So the question is, what can we do there? And Van der Ven seems to be the most obvious name left.
Yeah, and I think there's this perception going around, and it's a comment there, Adrian, that he's poor in the air. And this all seems to have stemmed from, and maybe there's another reason why everyone thinks this, but I doubt everyone saying that has been passionately following him over the last year and identified that as his weakness. I think there were the stats wheels that came up, and it was like Tapsoba, Van der Ven, and the clear gap was aerial ability. I think most of the Spurs fans on social media instantly went, well, he's obviously crap in the air. When you put up against Tapsoba, we should be getting Tapsoba and we can't have this guy. But there's so many variables in those stats wheels because there's just so many different ways in which you might deploy a player that completely change the way that they're playing. It might be that he was put into a certain role in the team whereby his aerial presence wasn't a part of the game they wanted to use with him. So that I think we're all a bit quick to jump to the conclusion. And as many people have said, as long as Ange wants them, what else really matters? As long as we're giving the manager the players that they want and believe they can build a team around, I think that's the most important ingredient if we want to be successful and build a right squad.
Definitely.
We all know we need a left-sided centre-back. That's just it. So if it's not going to be Van der Ven, who is it going to be? I don't think any of us can sit here and be like, well, I definitely want this guy instead. This guy is younger or he's faster or whatever it is. We don't know. But we definitely need to have another person there. We can't rely on the youngsters coming through to be good enough this season. Maybe in a year or two they might be. But giving Van der Ven a go, and that's a cooler phrase, I don't want to use it, but it does make sense. If he wants to join Spurs, that's half the issue. Obviously, we're going to give him a lot more money than Wolfsburg have been doing. He'll get a nice pay rise. He'll get the chance to perform in the Premier League, which... any Dutch kid. When I lived in Holland, Dutch kids, they care about the Premier League a lot. And so it's a great opportunity for him. None of us really know if it's going to work, but it's all about supporting them. Like Sanchez looked a world beater in his first year, and we now know it's probably more of the system than it was him. But if the system suits Van der Ven and we win games, what do I care if he's good at heading the ball? Maybe we don't want him to head the ball away because we'll be at the other end of the pitch most of the time. It's an interesting one.
Can we just remind ourselves as well that we all get a bit fixated on individual players in a squad when it's all about getting the right balance of individuals. Like, I think, is there any better example than someone like Jordan Henderson, who is probably, like, when you say his name out loud, he's so underwhelming, but Liverpool built a midfield around him and won the Champions League and the Premier League with this guy. And there was talk of that being the greatest team in a decade in the Premier League in the world of Man City, which I disagree with. But still, the point goes there that your team needs to be functional as a unit. It's not about, taking individual statistics and just going, therefore this person is rubbish. We don't know what Ange wants from his centre-backs necessarily yet. It might be that he has a much more important, strong attributes in other areas that tick those boxes.
Yeah.
Especially with a high line as well. I think the fact he's incredibly quick helps. My only real concern about him is he's typically played in a back three on the left side. So I don't know how good he would be in a back four, but if Ange wants him.
Yeah.
You hear that noise? That's my fridge. Sorry about
that. Yeah. There's also talk about left back, isn't there, as well? Like,
yeah,
some people have made some really good points on that. Like, do we even know where he's going to deploy him and in what role?
Well, hang on a second. No, he's got to be a centre back. We need a centre back. If we're not going to put him there, then we'll have this conversation again in 2 weeks. I don't want to be doing that. Many comments have said we need two. Clearly, we do. Right? We need probably more than two in a perfect world. But to have an actual left-footed centre back, Van der Ven. I don't want to say like 95% done, but it seems as if the will is there from pretty much everyone. Wolfsburg want to sell him for a fair price. We want him. He wants to come. It will happen. I guess the question is, will it happen before Australia? And that's a bit more questionable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unless he fancies Reggie as an inverted wide centre-back or something ridiculous.
That would be a disaster.
There's a lot of hype for Tapsoba. That's not how you say it, is it? But,
I think it is right.
But he's, right-footed, and as much as I would love for us to get both of them, that doesn't seem like it's happening. So of the two, I would prefer Big Mickey.
I mean, the interesting thing with Tapsoba is that he has either played in the middle of a three or the right of it, but he can play on the left side in a four. It's almost like Maguire. Maguire always plays left side, even though he's all right foot. Tapsoba is along those lines, although, of course, last season Leverkusen did play with the three most of the time. So there'll be some adaptation, but, I mean, we've talked I've seen in one of the WhatsApp groups that I'm in, people talking about these players need time to adapt to Ange's way. But to me, I'm not sure the centre-backs really do, in the fact that their job is basically to mop up. If we're playing well, then their job is to stand on the halfway line and make sure the ball doesn't get past them, pretty much. So if they've got the speed, if they've got the nous to be able to win those one-on-one battles if and when they come, then perfect. But we need two. And I would like both to cost a certain amount of money.
If we enter the start of the season with Eric Dyer at centre-back, and I don't like this calling Dyer out at the moment because he gets so much unfair hate, but that's kind of another topic because he's not as good at football as we need him to be. But if we do enter the start of next season with the two centre-backs that started last season, and we've spent in the last year £100 million on Richarlison and Maddison, although I think they're players that made sense to sign, it just shows the priorities are all over the shop. Because if it's a budget issue, I just find it crazy that we're still beefing up the midfield and beefing up attacking options when you can improve the squad so much more significantly by just signing a couple of good centre-backs. I just find that the priority, it's like, I get that people are going to say, yeah, but we took advantage of the situation at Everton and the situation at Leicester to get these players in an opportunistic moment. Yeah, but it still doesn't change the fact that we therefore didn't get a centre-back and we finished 8th. And we wouldn't have finished 8th if we had a good centre-back who had stayed fit all season. So, yeah, I think I might be standing outside the club shop for the first time ever if we start next season with Dyer and Sanchez at centre-back.
Yeah, that is a horrifying.
I won't be buying anything.
Seeing a backline of Ben Davies, and I love Ben Davies. He's the Welsh.
Then don't say his name in that sentence.
No. Okay. Ryan Sessegnon, Eric Dyer, Davinson Sanchez, and Emerson Royale, even though I don't think Emerson's actually that bad. That back line is
none of us
bottom
want to see that.
7. Like that's dreadful. And
There's a clear correlation between the strength of your defence and how far you are up the table. There always has been, and there always will be. Spurs' best team ever had pretty much our best centre-back partnership that certainly I can remember. And so it isn't just one. Like, you need to have two that function. Everyone can talk about, Ferdinand and Vidic together because they worked as a tandem and they were great. One was very much the ball-playing central defender, and the other one was, you're not going to get past me no matter what. Yeah. But it worked, and I thought that Spurs need to figure out almost like if Romero's going to stick around a long time, then we need to find a partner for him, someone who will mesh well with him. Weirdly enough, I had a feeling we were going to go for an Argentinian just for that reason, but and maybe we still will. But I just defense is, I don't know, like you will always get points if you don't concede, right? Yeah. And you can score 6 and lose. So, defense is a massive part of the game.
It is.
I just wanted
defense
to bring
win
this
titles.
Obviously, Bastoni doesn't want to leave Inter, but that didn't stop Newcastle signing Tonali for leaving Italy. So apparently, you can get players out of clubs even though they don't want to leave.
You definitely can, but I think it helps when you're going to a club with infinite wealth because they see this kind of, if I take this opportunity now, because I won't get in Man City's team, no chance. But if I join Newcastle now, I'm going to be in the next Man City in 3 years' time, dominating the world, and I'll be a complete global superstar. I think there's a bit of that goes in the certainty there will be success if you make them. He still looks miserable though, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He still seems to be. But I get the point. I think there's a stat, wasn't there, last year? Only 2 Italian players in the entire Premier League, which is
right now.
Last season, I think there was only 2 Italian players in the entire Premier League, just to show how hard it is to get them out of the division. Like yeah.
So I can think of one, and now I want to know who the other one is. Dang it!
Yeah.
But there you go. That is mad. I didn't know that.
I think one of them was Galini, wasn't? No, because he was gone. That was season 4 last. Yeah.
The one I'm thinking of is Jorginho, who's not really Italian anyway, but I guess he would count. Okay. Anyway, but yeah, they do like their home cooking. I mean, like the stereotypes are somewhat true. It seems like I think Tonali is from Brescia, so like playing in Milan it's an hour away. Like he's not moved, and he's a young kid going to a different country. It would be a scary time, and as much as I quite like Newcastle as a city, it's not a cultural hotbed like Milan might be. It will be a very, very different experience for him.
Yeah,
I would hope for his sake that there's a release clause of some kind that if Newcastle get their money back, he can go or something like that. But otherwise, he's going to be there a very long time, sadly.
The only culture...
Sorry,
you go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Oh, no, just saying, I feel like Newcastle's an awesome city and I've been there a lot, but it's kind of like, to me, it's awesome because my money goes twice as far and it's got lots of cool stuff to do and there's some nice houses and corners to it and the people are great fun. But if you're a multi-millionaire, you don't need good value for money. You just want to be in the most, tailored city in the world for rich people, and it's not really Newcastle.
Yeah, what I was going to say was, I dated someone from Newcastle for a while, and the only culture that apparently seemed to exist up there is Geordie Shore and cheap beer. So I can't imagine Tonali's going to be particularly interested in either of those two. So, yeah, I can understand his apprehension being there. This is a terrifying thought. Would anyone like to consider this?
I mean, I can't. I mean, would we rather see him over Sanchez? Is that where we're going with this? Like the idea that we can't shift centre backs. So I don't know, but no, I hope not. I guess it could happen in a weird injury riddled squad season, but I don't think it's as high as Plan D, to be honest.
No, I can't. I can see it happening as like a makeshift. We're playing Carlisle in the cup, and we need to give our shiny new centre back a rest and.
Lion City Sailors in a few weeks, you might see Emerson at right centre back. But I mean, Gav, if you're right, I will hold my hands up. Maybe Ange has seen the light and views him as being that kind of person, but I, I, I actually think Emerson will be a very good option to do that fullback role for him, because I think that when he got better last season, he was doing just that. He was stepping into midfield. He wasn't really that defensive fullback. He was quite comfortable just going an extra line up the pitch rather than becoming an attacker. But yeah, we'll see what's going to happen. It's exciting. We don't really know what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, very true. I do say I trust Ange, even if he does want to pull some football manager type stunts tactically or in team selection. Yes, this is why HG's on the show, for his beautiful insights, such as Newcastle not being the LAN. I'm glad that everyone now knows that. Well, of course, and that's why everyone agrees we need centre backs, because I don't want to see Davinson Sanchez play another game of football for Tottenham, and preferably I'd like Eric Dyer to not play another game of football for Tottenham.
It's crazy that it sounds awful, but I can't believe I'm going to say this publicly. I feel like Sanchez actually wouldn't be a bad option for Ange if you just want someone to stand there and deal with the nonsense if and when it comes. If you want him to be to aid the attacking part of it, well, we know Sanchez can't really do that. So he's not perfect for Ange. But I'd rather see Sanchez play there than Dyer. Dyer can't run. Right? And so if you're asking your defenders to be the last line of defence, like Liverpool have done with Van Dijk, then Dyer's it's never going to work.
Well, isn't there there's that graph going around on social media as well, where it's like the pace of players basically, and Sanchez is firmly in the bottom left as well. So we have two, should we call them leggy centre backs? All you have to do really is hoof the ball over the head when they press up high, and you're in.
And the thing is, you talk about stats Sanchez has been playing on his own 18-yard line for the last 3 seasons. When has he ever needed to run? So he doesn't have the option to show that pace, because where's he running? Towards the corner flag probably. But it's weird. I don't know. We all know it worked with Jan and Toby, because although they weren't the fastest, they were smart. And they knew what they were doing, and they could mop up. When we were really good and we played this similar kind of football, they didn't have to look amazing, because they didn't have a great deal to do, and what they could do, they did it very well. That's kind of what we want from Spurs' centre-backs. We want to get that archetypal, 6'4", 6'5" guy who's got wheels and is decent on the ball. We don't need him to be the next flipping Beckenbauer. That would be lovely. But, that's not the world we're shopping in. So I hope we can find two. And Tosin, again, is 6'5". He's not a small centre-back. We've seen all those links too. So although I don't think Tosin is a first-choice option, I do think that we're probably looking as a squad player, that there's a certain kind of defender that we're looking for. And none of them are 6 foot tall. They are all 6'3", 6'4".
Yeah, they are big units.
It also came out, I believe today, might have been yesterday. Someone can inform me if I'm wrong. I have no concept of what day it is really anymore. Ryan Sessegnon is injured, unfortunately. Now, does anyone here think he has a future at Spurs? And I'd say, if so, why? And secondarily, do we think it's going to have an adverse impact on our trying to sell him?
Go on, HG. I have my thoughts on this, but
everyone knows that we call Sessegnon cesspit in our little group. Look, is it unfortunate? Yes, for him, because he obviously wants to be a footballer and he wants to play football. Is it unfortunate for Spurs? No. Right? It's pretty fortunate for Spurs. I mean, that sounds awful. It's not fortunate. I don't mean it like that. I don't mean it like
Savage.
that. But I don't want to see Sessegnon play for Spurs. It seems a mental thing for him more than anything else. Maybe he's never had full confidence in his body for the last 3 seasons, and that's why. Right? I mean, maybe that's part of the ginger attitude that he seems to show on the pitch. So, I'd like to think he's going to turn into a world beater, but I never thought he would be at the time. I thought it was going, he's a decent technical, he's your old school left midfielder, right? If you wanted someone to keep the shape, be useful, then he could do that. But I don't see any world-class skill in his game, sadly. And so, hamstring injury or not, I didn't want to see him stay at Spurs.
Yeah, I have to agree. Like, I've been kind of on this. Session's another one. He's in the same camp to me as Dyer and Sanchez, and I think they're lovely human beings, and they don't deserve hatred for their inability to perform for a top 6 football club, because the work ethic seems to be there, and there's no animosity from them back to us as fans, despite us giving them a lot of pelters to them. But I kind of felt like even 2 years ago, it was pretty clear this hamstring issue was just not going to go away. It was just so consistent. And I kind of feel you need to kind of stop. Sometimes you need to learn when to let go. And I think people struggle to let go of. We've held on to him way too long, and we should have just gone, look, let's stop trying to build a team around this guy. He's clearly never going to be quite fit enough to maintain a season in the Premier League. And then we could have started our succession planning for someone else. But it feels like he's kind of just been around too long, and now poor guy is probably going to be in the under-21s for the next 2 years until his contract's completely empty, and he'll go off on a free transfer to, League One or something.
Back to Fulham, maybe, wherever they are. I don't know.
Imagine. Yeah.
It's just like, no, I don't think any of us really thought he was going to be part of the equation last season. And then Conte fell out with Reguilon, and that was that. Then suddenly Sessegnon was one of those players. But when you're looking at wing-backs of, Sessegnon, Perisic, and Davies ends up being the best of them in that system. It doesn't say a lot for the system or the players, really. But Sessegnon, I think he's a decent finisher. I think he's proved that for Spurs as well. Like, if you get him in the box, he can find the bottom corner, more so than Reguilon ever did, weirdly enough.
Yep.
But if you need him to defend, it's not his game. If you want him to show any confidence on the ball, it's not his game. Even if it's overconfidence, you weren't going to get that. It was very much, give me the ball and I'll find Davis or Longley because they're behind me. I'm not going to try and take my man on. So, it's rough because maybe there are a couple of physical things that could see him be a decent Premier League player. But for where Spurs want to be, that's not going to be Sessegnon's level.
No, he's not even, I say, that young anymore in the world of a Premier League footballer, is he?
He's 23.
And he's younger than Rodon. Rodon's about 25, isn't he?
Yeah, he's younger than Rodon.
Players. But there's this perception that Rodon's 21 amongst a lot of people for some reason, and that he's going to turn good one day. But
Rodon's played far more football, so I will defend Joe Rodon because he's well.
No, you can slag him off. You can slag him off. Davies, you should defend, but you can slag Rodon off. That's fine.
Rodon, I think Rodon in particular is unfortunate. He's not good enough for Spurs, but there is a solid centre back there, at least for Wales. Davies, I'm not hearing any Ben Davies slander. I'm sorry.
No, he's
Welsh Maldini.
Ben Davies has always been put into these terrible situations. Like the last 5 years, so many of those players have just been continuously forced into such a horrible cesspit of a situation. We've brought in the wrong managers, made them play football they hate to play, and a few of them, the best one being Son, have just gone, I don't care, I'm sticking with it, I'm going to fight for it, I'm going to try and make it work. And Davies is another one, I think. He's one that's you kind of feel he's got himself to the top of his potential. And fine, the ceiling isn't massive, but he's worked really hard, and we've told him he's a left back, then we've told him he's a centre back, then we've told him he's neither. But he's just always stuck with it and kind of made it work under miserable circumstances.
Just wanted to bring this up. Please smash the like button, or I'm going to be told off if there aren't enough likes, and I don't need that. So please do hit the like button. Helps the show, helps us grow, and bring you better content than me hosting. So if you want to see that, like and subscribe. Usually there's better people on than me. So stick around. If you like this, you're going to love the rest of the show.
Right. Yeah. Let's look at some of the questions in the comments box. This one's just come up. So, Rajat, you're lucky that I'm looking right now. Skip. Like, what is he going to be in Ange's system? Do we see him as a 6? Do we see him as an 8? Like, what do we think he's going to be in that system?
He does almost look like the Suma cover, right? That's my take, at least. If Højbjerg's off, then I think he's covering that position in that destroyer position. But,
Jim?
Yeah, I did feel with Skip, like I could see him trying to progress his game over the last 12 months. And by that, I mean, we see him as this kind of destroyer, ball winning, hard-working central midfielder. And to be fair to Højbjerg, him as well, I felt both those players last season really tried to work on their progressive passing, and Skip was particularly showed a lot of improvement in that area. So, yeah, I know the answer is I don't know. But my feeling is he's still young enough whereby under someone like Ange, he can be moulded into the type of midfielder Ange wants him to be. And it wouldn't surprise me if we saw him again kicking on and just kind of being a more progressive midfielder than we expected him to be, and not just this kind of defensive, unit in midfield breaking up play. So yeah, I hope. I'd much rather we loaned him than we let him rot on the bench next season, because we always have a soft spot for those academy players, and he's another one that I really hope gets minutes next year. And without Europe, I hope there's space for him to get some time on the pitch.
I mean, this is the crazy thing. Like, I think we all talk about Skip being at Norwich. That was when he showed that he could be a very good footballer. Norwich loved him. They wanted to keep him when they were in the Premier League, and we said, no, we're going to keep him around. But in that system, when they played a 4-2-3-1, I think he was very much one of the ones that sat and broke up play and then just gave it to the better ball players. And in the system we played last season, he had to do a bit more than just that. He couldn't do just that. And that's why it didn't really seem to work for him. He didn't really know what he wanted to do or needed to do. There were occasions that he got forward and was on the end of stuff, but to be able to maneuver the ball through midfield has not really been his thing under pressure. And so in this system, I suspect he's more of a 6, because I think Ange is going to want attacking players to be those 8s, and Skip to me isn't that. But whether he's going to be the Bissouma sub or whether someone like Sarr gets those minutes, I don't know. Like, who do I think has the better ceiling? Probably Sarr. Who do I think is probably needed around? Probably Skip. But one of those two, you'd imagine, will want to go out on loan.
Yes.
And then in that case, maybe with Sarr being under 21, it won't matter for numbers in the squad. But you'd imagine that Bissouma is going to be the first option. So unless there are injuries, there are two younger players who will need minutes.
It's such a tough one, isn't it? I feel like there's plenty of examples of players who seemed like they seemed wasted, sat on the bench last season, and Richarlison is kind of one of those to me as well. But they're only wasted when the man ahead of them doesn't get injured. So like, I think he's one of those where we bought him to go, Richarlison, this example. Like, okay, you're gonna step in when Harry Kane's injured, because we've always said as fans, where's the backup striker? And then Harry goes the whole season pretty much injury free and has an incredible season. But things could have been very different if he had done his hamstring in the first week of the season, and Richarlison's playing every week. And I think it's the same for Sarr. We could easily loan these guys out, and then Bissouma, recurring injury, comes back, and we're going, oh my gosh, imagine we could have had Sarr playing in there every week, and now we've got Harvey White, who's a massive step down. So it's a tough one. It's a hard one for the club to get right. But I always think the club needs to be selfish. You need to put the club first, and that is better to have too much of a bloated squad and let some young player not fulfill their potential than it is to leave yourself short playing, not fit, not ready academy players when you've got, thick and fast schedule coming through.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. Like, if they've bought those younger players like Brian and Udogie and Pape Sarr, well, Pape Sarr's been 2 seasons now as a Spurs player. How long does he need to be before we thought, okay, you're going to be a first-team player at Spurs? Now, we may well have assumed that European football was always going to be there, but even then, you would have hoped that at 2021, whatever Sarr is now, he would need to be part of your 2 best options for a position. Otherwise, what was the point in spending 15 million 2 seasons ago? Like, you have to believe they will reach where you want them to be. But there are so many tough calls, because our midfield, we've got so many. Like, I genuinely think that Harvey White is a decent footballer, but he's never going to get any minutes at Spurs. And yet, as we saw last season, we loaned him out. He didn't get many minutes at Derby, and he may well have got more minutes for Spurs at some point. You're kind of damned either way. But I think Skip, what we saw last season was not the best Skip, and I think that was more to do with the system that we were trying to play rather than Skip being out of form. I will say that at least.
I definitely agree. I think, especially last season, we had quite a structured isn't the right word because all modern football is incredibly structured, unless you watch Brazilian football much, which I'd recommend actually is entertaining. Much more fun than positional play. But yeah, I don't think that did skip any favours, especially with his injuries. And I think he is a good player. I mean, he's not a world beater, but we can't have 22 world-class players. And is he good enough to play as that destroyer in midfield? Yeah, I think so. Also, he does love a slide tackle. So,
as Jim said at the start, or towards the start of the show, it's a team game. Like, you can have 22 world-class players and it won't work. Because if the team isn't there or they don't function together, like we saw Veron, I mean, going back 20 years now, but Veron in the Premier League never really worked, whether it was Chelsea or Man United. But that didn't make him a bad player. It just meant that there was something wasn't quite there, didn't really work for them. So, like, yes, I would much rather have 11 players that maybe weren't the greatest, but actually did function together as a team. Like we've seen Villa. I mean, Villa have gone from, what were they, 16th when Emery took over? And they ended up 7th ahead of us. And they bought one player. And it was all about, like, we've got decent players. We're going to try and find a system that suits them. And they found one. And they got their number 9 scoring goals. And like, I feel like if you have a good manager, you can do that. Ange could do that with the players that he's got. We would love to see a centre-back added in, obviously. But there is still enough there for you to say, we can be a lot better than what we've shown to this point.
Well, didn't Conte take 8th place Chelsea to the Premier League title in one season? I mean, like there was a lot of those players were the same ones as before. You got to some of it's like ironically talk about the same manager, but Conte's example, like the confidence of the players was so low, particularly the young players. And you've got to imagine like a leader coming into your place of work, whatever it is, and saying, "No one's allowed to be promoted anymore. I'm only going to hire externally. So stay here if you want." But there's no progression for you anymore. And your job is now to do this one very specific thing in this spreadsheet over here. And if you dare move outside that spreadsheet or suggest anything else, you're out. And it kind of becomes so insular and their confidence as players just fell off a cliff. But I feel then the whole mass resurgence when someone comes in and says, "I trust you, I believe in you, you're talented, come up with your own ideas, there's career progression here. If you can do X, Y, and Z in X years, that promotion's yours over there." And like just basic people management. And that seems to be Ange's biggest strength, which is why I think if anyone's going to finally get a tune out of some of these, and again, even players like Lo Celso, I'm still wouldn't be gutted if the guy stayed, because I kind of feel he's another one that he'll go somewhere else and we'll go, yeah, he's actually a really tidy footballer, isn't he? What happened? And that may even be in the Premier League at Aston Villa. So I think a lot of this is an Ange, us not moving on players. I do wonder of it is how much of it is Ange thinking, let me see how good these guys are when they're motivated and they want to play for someone.
Yeah, it's interesting how, like, as fans, we all want to forget the last 4 seasons, right? None of us want to remember being managed by Mourinho or Conte. Despite Conte getting us to the Champions League, these aren't good memories. The last 4 seasons have been bad. And yet here we are judging these footballers who have been here, well, for the last 4 seasons, unsurprisingly. Like, there's a direct correlation that the managers could be perceived as being bad, and the players probably could have done better in some cases, but still, like, they're not tarnished with the fact that they had terrible managers, when perhaps that should be part of it. And that when you're judging any player, like, how they're being used is a massive part of their success. There are, to me at least, there are not that many players in world football who will be a success regardless. We've seen Kane do it at Spurs, but that's one. Right, that's one player at Spurs who's been that. So it's to have someone come in and say, right, like I want you to do this. This is how I need you to do it, and I don't want you to, like, you've been told what to do, so just go and do it. You don't have to worry about anything else. And just come out and said plenty of times that he will take the heat, which obviously our last few managers haven't done. I want to be hopeful.
I am hopeful, but as a little call out for all fellow Spurs fans, like, if we get to Christmas and we're 12th, let's not turn, because we know this is going to be a slow and turnaround. We know that half the squad are used and been having absolutely drilled in their brains for 3 years. They need to sit back and not go forward. There's dirty habits in there. There's a complete change in system coming into place. There's going to be so much change going on. And at the same time, when you look at the history of Ange, he never starts particularly strongly. But if you have that patience to get through that bit of the rough, things get very, very good. So it's just kind of that.
I can handle like 3 defeats in our first 6 games, and then we win the league. That's the Ange story, right? If that happens, I'm all right with it. Like if we had defensive players who had played defensive football, then I would be like, okay, we are in a massive problem here because we've been bad at that. But the thing is, we have attacking-minded players trying to play defensive football.
Yeah, so
you would hope that any turnaround would be a bit more instantaneous than 12th at Christmas. I want to see us in the European spots, right? And but like I would say top 6, even though at Christmas time that means top 5. But generally, like we are in the running for something that we'd all like to see. That's what I think we could do. As much as maybe that's over optimistic, I don't know. Like we were top 5 or top 6 for most of last season, and we just threw it away at the end. And that was when we were, playing bad football under a bad manager, and we had decent players who were somehow getting us over the line. Let's hope that with a better manager and players playing football that they actually want to play, we could be okay. Like again, I don't want to sit here and say that we're going to be amazing, but I do think that there is a possibility for a massive step forward quite quickly.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to the questions about the style of play, I'm going to get cooked for this comment, but from what I've seen of Ange, the best way I can describe his tactics are almost like a more direct version of Sarri at Napoli, not Chelsea. Sarri, Napoli. Sarri. Almost like an in-between of Pep and Klopp in some ways. Direct ball possession is the primary goal, with lots of attempts to use the midfielders in transition to create space and late runs into the box, that sort of thing, which is different from Pep because that's just having 10 trillion% possession, which is boring. In regards to a slow start, I do think we may end up with one. I mean, our players have essentially had 3 managers now. They've had several years of the equivalent of being beaten with a stick of boredom. Like, pretend if you only everyone think of the music you hate the most, right? Okay, you've been forced to listen to that for the past 4 years. All day at work. Okay, can't listen to anything else. That's all you've listened to. And then someone comes in, you get a new boss, right? And even when you go home, you're forced to listen to it. New boss comes in. Oh, you can play whatever you want. You can put earphones in. And then you sit down and you put your earphones in and you can play your favorite song. It's going to take a bit of deprogramming, isn't it? To truly enjoy that song a little bit. But it must be a relief to not.
My focus would be on the relief. I'm like, great, no more flipping Chumbawamba. Brilliant.
Even when Conte got sacked from Chelsea when Sarri came in, the players were really happy because everything was far less regimented and they could actually play attacking football. There was a huge relief morale-wise, and I think that must be the same at Spurs because we've had it even worse. We've had bloody Mourinho, Nuno, and Conte in a row. I mean, I don't know if Ange certainly looks like the kind of guy who's going to be bringing a burger van with a big bottle of ketchup. Maybe that's more Harry Redknapp, but I'm sure the players are enjoying not being forced to eat nuts and salad all day as well.
I mean, did you think Adrian makes a good point here? That we're all sitting here being hopeful for the new season. Well, obviously, there's the big elephant in the room that Kane might go. Do you will your morale crash if Kane is sold?
No, not at all. And I want to keep him. Let me be very clear. He's the best academy product we've ever had, and he's not my favourite Spurs player ever because he's never said I want to be at Spurs forever and I love Tottenham. He's never said that, but he's still very, very special, and I'm so grateful we've been able to watch this guy for so long. But with Harry, I just feel like. Where am I going with this? I'm not going to be crushed if he goes because I feel there's the teams, like I said at the start, a better defense will mitigate the loss of the goals he brings anyway, mostly anyway. So I can see where the improvements can come from to mitigate the loss of Harry. But the main reason why is I'm just sick of every conversation being about Harry Kane. I support Tottenham Hotspur. I don't support Harry Kane. The second Harry's gone, he's no longer he might get a shirt on my wall at some point. It's behind me, but he's legacy. He's old stuff. I support Tottenham, and I find with this whole saga at the moment, we talk about Harry Kane more than we talk about Tottenham Hotspur. I could almost guarantee if someone got the data and said, when the world of Tottenham Hotspur, you have those bubbles of the most common word, Kane would be this enormous bubble over here, and everything else combined would be half the size. And I'm just kind of getting a bit like, I feel it sucks the fun out of things because we have so much to be optimistic about. And like the comment just there, which is quite right. But if he goes, it's all rubbish, isn't it? And it's like, I feel everyone feels that way. There's constant like stormy cloud just blocking the sunshine of what like Ange Postecoglou should be bringing in. Even he said at this press conference, right? It was like, third question, Harry Kane, great. Like I thought you'd care more about me. And if he does go, and I do want him to stay, if he does go, the silver lining will be I can finally just focus on loving Tottenham again. And Pochettino's Tottenham was like that. There was no star, well, I guess technically for Harry, except Harry Kane, in that team. That it just felt like it was 11 individuals, and I've never loved watching us so much.
No, but I mean, you're right. Like Kane, may well have been the best goal scorer in that side, but no one really thought Kane was above everyone else. I mean, you are right in that. Like we had, Eriksen and Dele, like that whole desk thing was a unit together, and they all offered something different. And sadly, the standard of the rest has fallen. Right. So now we're left with Kane, who has got better, oddly enough, with more responsibility. So yeah, I understand it. You're right. Like I don't hate Arsenal players. I hate Arsenal. Right. That's it. And that's the complete opposite of what we're talking about. Like I love Spurs, but I've never been that sad when a Spurs player is left. Like I remember being disappointed that Bale left, but it certainly wasn't the end of my Spurs supporting life. And we got better after doing so, although it took a year and a half to get going, but we got better. So like when Arsenal players leave Arsenal, I don't hate them anymore. But when they play for Arsenal, then they're the enemy. And when Spurs players play for Spurs, they are my player, and I support them. And when they go, I don't wish them all bad. Maybe a couple of them, but like at the end of the day, like as long as they do what they need to do for Spurs, then what can I complain? That my job is to go there and support the team. That's it. And I hope that I hope that Kane stays, and we don't have to worry about this in the next year or two.
Exactly. And we in chronological. Oh, sorry, go on, James.
I have to say I do agree with this comment. Aside from Eriksen, Moussa Dembele, chronically underrated.
We've never recovered from losing three players, and one of those is in the recent times, and one of those is Moussa Dembele. The other two, I think, are Jan Vertonghen and Toby Alderweireld. Like since those three players went, I kind of feel that ever since then, our midfield has had this missing creative spark and a ball-carrying midfielder, and our defence has been missing any half-decent centre-back that can, with any ball-playing centre-back that's consistent as well. So,
we tried to replace Vertonghen and Alderweireld, a brilliant centre-back partnership, with Eric Dyer and, admittedly Romero, who I do think is a world-class centre-back, but I think he was probably quite hungover from the partying that occurred after winning the World Cup, which, to be fair, if Wales won the World Cup and I played for Spurs, I would probably be a bit terrible for the rest of the season. So fair dues, right? But
no. We haven't even really tried to replace Vertonghen, and he's been gone for 3 seasons.
We haven't even tried. Sort of saying we've actually managed to upgrade in plenty of other positions, but we just haven't even bothered to upgrade the centre backs. It's just bizarre. And Paul, I agree with your comment. By the way, I like that. Like in chronological order, like we got better when Berbatov left, we got better when Modric left, and we got better when Bale left. There was a year lag between that, but we are bigger than those guys.
Like if Pochettino got us to, was it 6th, 5th in his first season? I forget, right? But 5th or 6th. It wasn't Champions League in his first season, but obviously it steadied things after the debacle of flipping Sherwood. And then the following season, we ended up finishing, that was the 3rd in the 2-horse race nonsense. But we finally had a team. And so if Ange can get top 5, top 6 this season, then I think we can all hope that the next season will be better. But again, like I genuinely feel that like we don't have too much to fear. I'm not concerned about relegation. I saw that we were second favourites for that. I think that's crazy talk. I want to be hopeful. I want to think that we will get better, because to me, we should. The simple change in manager should make things better. Like if Ange was playing the same 3-4-3 system, then we would struggle, right?
Yeah.
But we'd probably be better because we'd be trying to do it in their half. If nothing else changed, apart from the style of play, we would be better with the 3-4-3 under Ange than we were under Conte, because we never had the players to do that. And an attacking 3-4-3, we probably would do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree.
I mean, I think where we finish to me is actually a little bit less important than perhaps it should be. It's about, is this a football team I enjoy watching again? And is this a football team who I know where we're going? Because to be completely honest, I'm a Spurs fan, have been since my dad decided to force this upon me. I've called Childline many times, I assure all of you. But, you know, I don't go to many Spurs games. Can't afford it, especially now. You know, my local team is, unfortunately, Portsmouth, and I go watch them every week. But when I watch Spurs, and when I watch any football team, I just want to watch us play good football. I'd rather we lose trying to play than what I've had to see for the past few years of trying to not lose every game. And ultimately, if we finish the season 5th or 6th, but we're trying to play good football, then I'll be very happy. I'd be happier actually finishing 6th with a team that is trying to play good football than finishing 4th under Conte, because I still don't necessarily know where that goes long term. Under Ange, I can see something happening long term.
Yeah, I agree. There's the people who know Ange really well, the Celtic fans who obviously followed, and now there's a lot of Australian fans. I don't know if you guys had this on your podcast, but now we had a huge spike in Australian followers, which has been awesome, who follow him around the globe and enjoy watching him, and they know him better than us. And they were saying, like, this guy doesn't go into clubs and say, like, oh, my goal is 2 steps forward. He goes, I am going to win the title within 3 years. That's always his goal. I'm going to win the title in 3 years. I'm going to win the title in 3 years. He's done it everywhere he's gone. And the exact same thing will it be at Tottenham. He'll be like, I'm here to win the title. I'm not here to do anything else. But the difference with Ange that gets me super excited is, like, I know the resources I've got to work with. I know what I signed up for. That's fine. I've got enough to do it. Whereas the managers before him were always kind of like, if you want to win the title, I need X, Y, and Z. Whereas Ange is like, yeah, I believe you already have the setup to make it happen. Just give me 3-4 years and I'll do it for you. So I'm just buzzing to have that plan, like you're saying, James. It's just like, it's a vision, it's something I can just believe in and get behind now. And even if we have a crap first season, it's like, I don't care, because as long as I see the green shoots of the vision unfolding, there's hope.
I mean, Guardiola's first season at City was so bad they finished behind Spurs. So, like,
They
we
got
could
battered by
clearly
us.
move on. Sorry, James?
They got battered by us at White Hart Lane.
Yeah, was that the
first
5?
season.
Was that the 4-1 season? Might have been. I don't know. But
I remember Bravo having a few howlers.
yeah, it's just like we all want it to happen tomorrow. We all know deep down that it won't. But it is right. It is nice to have someone who thinks, you know, we're going to go out there and beat the other team, like actually go out there and be better than them. Because all those occasions that we've beaten teams, I mean, even under like Poch at his best, to be fair, like being 45 now, like watching Spurs go out and actually beat teams convincingly 3 or 4-0 almost every week felt like an out of body experience. Like, is this really happening?
It was amazing.
It was amazing, like genuinely amazing. It's my anniversary next week, and we got married on the day of Poch's first preseason game, right? So, like, I told my wife, look, I'm a Spurs fan, and all I could tell her about was Spurs pre-Poch. So I was like, look, we'll do okay, but we're never going to be really one of the best. Like, we're just going to be there or thereabouts, and we can lose to anyone and we can beat anyone. And then she witnessed 4 or 5 seasons of us under Poch, and she was like, would you lie to me? I'm like, no. This is as good as it's ever going to get. Right? This is not normal. And so the last 4 years, she's been like, okay, now I see it. Like, I can understand. But it's nice to know that it is possible. Because before Poch, I never really believed it. I never really thought that Spurs would be there or thereabouts, challenging for things, getting to semi-finals every season, finishing the top 2 or 3 of the league. I never thought that was going to be Spurs' future, and so I believe it's possible now. And
I do too.
yeah, and that's. Well, did I say that out loud? I can't believe I did. Someone's going to clip this and ruin me for the next 4 years. But I do. I genuinely think that with someone who knows what they're doing, Spurs are the type of club that could win everything. But we have to have someone who knows what they're doing. And rightly or wrongly, we haven't really had that for a while.
No, we haven't. And there's also the hope as well, like even slightly smaller picture, but I always find like when you lose a Berbatov, a Modric, a Kane, a Bale, whoever it is, you always think, I'm never going to see one of those again. And then this random person pops up into the squad and you're just like, they're going to stop getting better soon, surely. Surely they're going to stop getting better. Surely they're going to stop getting better. And they just keep getting better and better. And they just become I can't wait for that next breakthrough talent. And we're going to witness those next breakthrough talents over this Ange period. I'm sure there's going to be one or two of those new players that pop up that will soon think, how did we ever survive without these people? I'm buzzing for the future. Really looking forward to it.
I think, especially for me, as I hate to say it's Jim, I am younger than you, I believe. I think HD, unfortunately, it's a little bit more obvious. But as someone who's only 20, which makes me feel old because I'm not a teenager anymore.
Jesus, you're like 15
anyway,
years younger than me. Oh, God.
Really, your skin looks very good. I
know. I just deliberately dropped that just for the compliment because I always get it. But I'm mid-30s. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Anyway, what was my actual point? My actual point was, well, the first Spurs I really remember with any like degree of detail, aside from going to a Leeds game, Spurs Leeds, when I was like 4 and didn't pay attention to the game the entire time, was Redknapp and Bale.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, it was like, hazy memories, blah, blah, blah. But Pochettino, those were like my more formative memories because that's when I was like 12, 13 and actually sat and watched it on my own, football. So that's what I kind of got used to, right? And at the same time, I was a Wales fan, and the first Wales I really watched was us in the 2016 Euros when we got to the semi-finals. And then I got a bit older, and then I had to watch us lose to Turkey, and I had to watch Jose Mourinho manage Spurs. So it's kind of everything's kind of gotten worse as I'm getting older. If it keeps on this route, then we're going to be in League One pretty soon. But
you're not alone though. My first game when I was about 10 or 11 or something, I remember my uncle who took me at the time saying, "You have started supporting the club at the best possible time. The only way is up. Like we're on this rocket ship." He'd been going to Spurs for like 30 years already. And to be fair, for the first like 10 years, he was pretty much, we had a few dips, we were pretty much there. But it's amazing. Like I find that where I'm going with this is when we were mid-table, when I was watching that and we were on this slight rise, I think we were much, much happier than we were then in the season we finished 4th under Conte. Like I would have taken young Michael Dawson and Tom Huddlestone, in our team. Though I still loved those periods, even though the players were pretty average. It was still, you'll always find a way to love Spurs, even when we're not kind of challenging for anything. Well, we used to be able to do that. Whereas I think now we've tasted it. We've flown so close to the sun. We seem to be unable to be happy now unless there's that title challenge or there's that belief we're going to win a trophy that year. And I think it's a bit of a shame. I miss just enjoying Spurs for what they are.
I think that, yes, I think there is definitely something in that because, I go to watch Portsmouth and, okay, League One, finished 8th, right? Not brilliant. But I enjoy that more than I enjoy seeing and watching a game of Spurs on the TV, at least last season, because you go there, you go to the pub at 12 in the afternoon, which is amazing because, that's socially acceptable when you're going to the football. You have a few drinks with your mates and then you watch some football. And win or lose, there's an attempt, whereas I think the past few seasons watching Spurs, I haven't really felt that. Even when I've been to a game, and I've enjoyed going to a game, with my dad or with bumped into people from this lovely show. And that's great. That's a great experience, but it doesn't have the same feeling to it almost, It feels different. And I don't know if that's necessarily what you're describing, but it doesn't quite feel the same. And I do very much feel Ange, he has a bit of Pochettino about him, just with the main difference I see, aside from him being Australian, and I reckon he could probably outdrink me, is Pochettino was very vague. To put it in philosophical terms, he was Hegel, and Ange seems like, I don't know who Ange seems like. Ange just seems like the kind of guy to walk into a bar and tap you on the shoulder and say, "Oi, mate, you've had too much to drink." Pochettino would go, "Do you think another beverage is wise, good sir?" That's what I want. I'm sick of managers who give the most vague politicians' answers in every interview, whereas I feel like Ange does and he's shown that. He turns around and says exactly what he thinks. And I think that's what we need.
Although there was a certain Italian who did that, but
well, that was more of a meltdown.
The thing with Ange is that his answers are very politician-like, but he's just much better at it, right? Like he has the ability to, like, he'll answer your question and he'll give you a great answer for it, but there will still be questions coming from it, but you won't know, right? And I feel like that's a brilliant skill to have. I certainly don't have that skill. Right, I really don't. But Ange distills everything that he wants to say and puts it across in such a brilliant way that everyone comes away feeling 10 times bigger or better, or that they actually got an answer. They felt special, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing with Ange. He can make you feel special just by saying that water is wet. You'd be like, oh, okay. Thanks for saying that. And so obviously it needs to be more than that. But like I've always believed, team sports, it's about the coach. More than anything else, it's about the coach. Man City have brilliant players, but Pep is what makes them the team that they are. Liverpool have brilliant players, but it was Klopp's system that turned them to be the Champions League. So we need someone who can do more with what he's got. That's it. Yep. Every team sport has that. So I believe Ange can do that. I think he's going to get the support that maybe Martin Jol didn't, who was a similar character to me. I think that Ange is going to be fully in charge of the decisions, whereas Jol sadly wasn't. But we have to enjoy it. We have to understand. And again, because it's been so bad to watch, we can't not enjoy this. Like we're going to go to games. Whoever's going to the Man United game on the 19th, they're going to go there with excitement, or the 20th, whenever it is, but they're going to go with excitement to watch Spurs. They're not going to go there and be like, oh, do I really want to do this? Like, am I going to regret coming? And that's what it was 3 months ago. That's exactly what it was 3-4 months ago. And so it doesn't matter who we're playing. It doesn't matter who is playing for Spurs. I think that most people will walk into that stadium thinking it's going to be a good day. Even if we lose, I'm going to have had fun. Not because I'm with my mates drinking, but because the football will have been exciting to watch. And obviously we want the results to go with it, but I do believe that the results will come once we're good at what he wants us to do. Because, again, like past performance has shown that that's usually what happens.
Exactly. You can go on Twitter, and if you're sad enough to do this like I did about, it wasn't even that long ago, but you can search like Klopp out. And you can go back to the start of when his appointment at Liverpool, and everyone wanted the guy. A lot of the fan base wanted him gone at the start of his tenure. They're like, "Who's this rubbish?" Because after the first season, it wasn't within their expectations. Pep didn't have a particularly good first season, like you said, HG. Sir Alex Ferguson had a bad first 2 seasons at Man United, and there was massive talk that he was going to be sacked then. So, like, I just really hope that we could just do what you're saying, actually, just enjoy the green shoots for what they are, but keep our expectations in touch for what's possible in a really short amount of time. And then when we do hit those right notes, and we will hit those right notes under Ange, it will be so special and so worth the wait. But next season should just be about, let's enjoy seeing these new signings develop. Let's enjoy seeing some of these young players given time. Let's enjoy not sitting back and trying to defend a 1-0 lead, but trying to extend it to a 3 or 4-0 lead. And that's what I'm looking forward to. My old Tottenham is coming back, I hope.
I will say I appreciate what you said about it mattering more about the coach. As someone who's coached, albeit not in football, in esports, please can I clip that and send it to people who told me that coaching doesn't matter that much? Because I used to spend hours planning coaching sessions and people didn't appreciate it. So do you know what? I did a Conte-esque meltdown. But I was right. I'm still right. So sucks to be them. But no, you're right. I'm just excited to watch Tottenham play football that I actually want to watch again, and not like I remember saying to my mum, like when I was home for Easter last a while ago, whenever Easter was, oh, Spurs are playing later. She's like, oh, who are they playing? Whoever they're playing. And she's like, oh, you don't seem very enthusiastic. I was like, yeah, there's Spurs. I have to watch them, but we're dreadful at the moment. I don't really want to watch it, but I have to, because it's Spurs. Whereas now I'm thinking, I do actually want to watch Spurs next season. Like I have that little bit of excitement in me. It's like when Wales play. Like even though Wales are dreadful, I always want to watch them, just because it's different. But yeah, and that's what Ange gives. I mean, I will say HG. At least if Ange fails at football management, he could always go and be an Alistair Campbell. He would probably be an excellent spin doctor, which is my profession. So there you go. So there's always a plan B for him there.
But I feel like the best managers, it's always what they don't say, really. That Ange will give you the answer that you want. He'll make you, like I said, it'll make you feel special. But like, I mean, granted, it is that awful paper that starts with an S and finishes with an N. But when they saw like his face stuck on a kangaroo, I was like, really? Is that where we are? Like, it's going to be, I would imagine 2-3 months before they get over this idea that there's an Australian doing our game, which is ridiculous. Because you would think that he's proven. Scottish football might be a joke to most, but it's not about winning there. It's about how you do it. Like he said himself, like if you finish second, you're last. There is no other option, right?
Yeah.
So it's sad. I understand why they're doing it, but I really wish that the sooner we can get past that Ange is Australian, that it is like Ange is the manager of Spurs. It doesn't matter where he's from. Then things will improve. But I was annoyed when I saw that because it just doesn't need to be there. I thought those days had gone, if I'm honest.
I know. Well, you could even it's a very different scale, but you could even say at any level, like, okay, then why is Haaland potentially going to be the greatest player of all time? I know Norway's got a decent, an okay level of football team, but you wouldn't exactly call it a footballing nation, would you? That's going to go challenge for the World Cup, and yet they can produce, not even generational, more than he could go down as the greatest player of all time if he continues scoring at the rate he's scoring. It's just so silly to base it on the whole nationality thing. And I think, as others have said, what he's done really well, as other managers haven't done, is Lampard's got a Premier League job purely based on what he did as a footballer and his nationality and who he is as a person, and just had to climb the greasy gutter and work his way like a jungle gym, left, right, and up and down through football to navigate himself this opportunity. And one slip through that process and his reputation's gone because he is an Australian. And unfortunately him, that gives you way less grace than it does. Whereas Lampard's able to fail at 2 or 3 high-profile jobs and he'll still get another chance next year in the Championship or whatever he'll get. So I think that's a testament to him that he's consistently progressed despite that ridiculous stereotype that you can't do it because he's an Aussie. And he's still made it here.
I mean, and Aussies have dominated almost every other sport. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not as if Australia is this sporting backwater. Like, it was surely only a matter of time before they've had players play in the top level for a long time now, but and more so now than ever before. But so for a coach to get there, it can't be that weird. Like when England won the Rugby World Cup because they had I'm getting this mixed up. It was the cycling team that got the rugby guy involved, or some kind of Clive Woodward got involved with something. But they
marginal games,
they recognise that coaching is coaching, right? And it doesn't really matter what the sport is if you are able to deal with the pressures that come in that particular game. Which, strictly speaking, pressure is pressure, no matter what you're doing. And you can handle that pressure and you embrace it, then you will go on and do something. So, like for Australia to have the success they've had at pretty much every sport I can think of, it was only a matter of time before someone came along and said, "Hey, well, soccer's my sport. I'm going to go and do it."
Sorry, I have to reply to a ridiculous comment. I'm very sorry. I'm not. Oh, no, that's not the comment I was looking for. This is the comment. Great host. Sorry, I'm not having Ange compared to the lobster guy who... I'm not having him... That's an insult to Ange. Please rescind that comment. No. I don't know why. What did I click? I'm trying to
clicked on
talk Kate
Bush. Can we
so I
you want
can
to talk
marry
about
her.
Kate Bush for a bit?
I don't know who Kate Bush is, so.
Oh,
Oh my god!
Well, you are talking.
But
You are
guys,
talking. Oh, sorry.
there's been some breaking news. Have you seen that this Barcelona hijack we tried to do?
no.
You see, it's broken since we were on the pod. We tried to hijack, according to Fabrizio Romano, who's reliable. We tried to hijack Vitor Roque. Is that how you pronounce his name?
Maybe.
For with an €100 million bid
No.
at the last minute.
No, because on the Spurs page where it
This is just coming out now. Like,
there's a
what?
separate page that shows all the news about Spurs, and it mentioned that, but it was from a website called allnigeriasoccer.com, so I didn't think that was necessarily the most reliable source, so I didn't mention it when I looked earlier.
But this is new, yeah. It's saying his agent in an interview has told Fabrizio Romano that Tottenham and Man United both tried to hijack the bids, and both bids were close to €100 million.
That's got to include wages, surely. This idea of like we're going to pay this much to the club, and then because I mean you could say if we wanted to play this game, and I'm not sure I do, bearing in mind where I'm going with this, but like does that mean that Tanguy Ndombele was a £120 million deal? Because when you add in his wages at 10 million a year plus the fee, I can't believe Spurs are spending 9 figures on a player. Certainly a player from Brazil.
But
do you know what I mean?
he's
it has to include wages.
He's a number 9, right?
Mm.
So to me, that signals that there might be an expectation something's going to happen to another number 9. Well, actually, let's just flush over that one. But that would signal something to me. But then we've got the Hot Wing interview tomorrow, don't we, of Harry?
Yeah, wait a second. I just saw this comment. Is it King Dom? Is this true? I've not read this or seen this, but that seems an incredibly smart thing to do, right? To talk with the other people from those. Yeah, I mean it's that makes sense to me. You're dealing with similar things. The sports might be different, but at that level, when it's elite, there have got to be similarities that you won't see. It's not as if we're comparing AFL and the Premier League, right? Where they're completely different sports, but the mentality that it takes at the highest level, that's really cool. I didn't know that.
That is cool.
So that is really cool.
Man management and setting up sessions is the same regardless of what you're doing, isn't it? Like, side tangent, I did GCSE PE, so I had to I did this like weird course that only 2 schools in the entire country did, which technically counts as a GCSE, but like wasn't GCSE PE anyway. I had to like design coaching courses and stuff, and I basically just ripped off some pages out of Pep Guardiola, and then I got the top grade. So cheers, Pep. But the general principles I applied when I coached an esports team were exactly the same. You know, you set times, the way you deal with people does vary to some extent because, especially university students, people are, a bit temperamental. But at the same time, if you don't show up, you're not playing. Enough said. That sort of thing. It's the same regardless. If I managed a football team, it would be exactly the same. You don't show up to training, you're not playing the match. I don't care how good you are. I'm not accepting that. But so, yeah, I think that's very, very intelligent. I also found a page from Barca News Network, so I'm sure they're going to be completely biased, talking about Man United and Spurs. €100 million offer for Barcelona new signing rejected. Agent confirms.
I was going to say we're going to see him in a few weeks, but I don't think he joins until the winter. But it's kind of cool that we have a high-profile friendly in a place we actually want to visit. No offense to Perth or Singapore or anyone, but like that we're going to Barcelona to play a game. Like I know it's just pre-season, but it's not a bad way to end the pre-season by going there. I wish I had the time to make a midweek trip to go and see it because
when is the game?
I think it's the 8th. I think it's the 8th. Of August. It's only a couple of days after the Shakhtar game, and only 5 days before the start of the league season. But it's a decent chance for us to kind of see where we are because Barcelona are champions of Spain. They'll be using it as a pretty intensive friendly for them. Their league season won't start that much later than ours if it's not the same weekend. So I'm excited by that. Like I don't necessarily get excited by the Far East tours. I wish, somewhat biased, I wish that we would do like a 10-day training camp in Austria, which we've never done. Liverpool have been, all the other clubs have been, but not Spurs.
Why would you
But
want that, HG?
Because I'm in the summer months I'm at a loose end. I don't know what I would do, and a few days in the mountains would be all right of Austria. But I am excited for that friendly, because it will feel big, because like Spurs in Barcelona against Barcelona has happened twice in my life, and I was like 4, I think, when the first one happened. So pre-season or not, it's a kind of cool experience.
Yeah, I'd love it to be somewhere I could easily travel to, like you're saying, basically, and get stuck. I'd love to, but then it is nice, I guess, for fans in other parts of the world to get the opportunity when they're not going to get it.
Oh, it
season,
is.
but
that's every year. It feels like every year.
Yeah,
you know?
true.
Like I'm not reminiscing of those, tours of Sweden in the early '90s that we used to do, but I guess they were no different, right? Like at that point, we were trying to get new fans to watch Spurs, and now they're just going further afield. But one of these years, I would like Spurs to say, you know what, we're going to stay in Europe and we're going to focus on things and not be a sponsorship. I mean, because it does kind of annoy me that we're playing Lion City Sailors or whatever they're called in 2 weeks. Like nothing against them, I know nothing about them, but I would rather that we were doing something different, and that sponsorship is taking over that way. I don't like it. I'm going to sound like my dad. I don't like this modern stuff. But
Back in my day.
Yeah.
HG, you're about 2 steps away from being the guy in every Weatherspoons who's sat reading the Daily Mail at 9 a.m.
Take those words out of your mouth. I will never set foot in a Weatherspoons.
That's where I saw you before.
Yeah. There was me in the corner having both of the half-price meals back in the...
and the £1.70 ale that you can buy.
Do you know what? I say that. The Weatherspoons I've been in haven't been that bad. I will say that.
Yeah, to be fair, I have actually enjoyed a few nights in a Weatherspoon, but I haven't been sat there at 9 a.m. with a Daily Mail.
When you've crashed on a mate's sofa in a city you don't know that well, and you're hungover and you want something to eat and a beer at 9 a.m. for like a £5, where else are you going to go? Anyway, real question here is, HG. Well, if Spurs do a pre-season camp in Austria in the future, do you have a spare room I can crash in?
If I kick my wife and daughter out, absolutely. They won't want to be here for the football. So
exactly. Yeah. Winner then, mate. Sorry,
yeah. No, I still dream. It will happen at some point. Like I look at all the pre-season fixtures that happen in Austria. It's incredible, genuinely. Like there are so many teams that come here. Last summer, I got to see Toby when he was with the Qatari side, or was that the summer before? But they came to Vienna, and I think there's a game, Eintracht. My German team are playing down close to Salzburg, and I'm like, yeah, like Austrian football pre-season is probably better than Austrian football during the season. But yeah, I don't know. It's just once, Spurs, please, just once. Sort the noise out. It's just regenerating. My fridge speaks. I really don't know why, but it does speak.
I'm sorry,
there's this weird, I don't know, but yeah, we bought a fridge.
Is your fridge
and it's
David
great.
Tennant?
It's honestly like when I bought the fridge and I opened it up, it said something about like internet ready, and I was like, no, not interested in that. But there are levels to these things that I don't really understand. But yeah, sorry that it spoke earlier. My fridge likes a gurgle.
If I get a cheap flight to Vienna, to Austria this summer, I'll come over and I will set up your fridge for you properly. Would you like that?
No, I don't want another app. I don't want an app to control things. I open the door, that'll do. I'm not going to have this conversation.
Are you sure you're not recording this from a Weatherspoons?
I think someone said to me once, everything new is great until you hit 30, then everything new is shit, and you want just all that stuff before you hit 30.
Are you there, Jim? Because I'm definitely there.
Yeah, I'm definitely there. Oh yeah, no, I'm already like, my dream car is a car from early 2000s, like I'm firmly stuck in that area.
Okay.
That said, funnily enough, my dream car is an 80s M3, so I'm also there.
Oh man,
This conversation is massively derailed, but it's
it's not,
and
not
apparently,
Spurs at all.
apparently,
No.
85 people are watching. So,
But
I'm
football,
wishing they weren't.
I would actually argue that football was, and this is going to sound like, oh, my generation was better than yours. I'm not even that old, but I do genuinely feel that the football was more fun and exciting during that early Premier League era. Like the start of the Premier League era, I feel was the peak. Since then, there's been tweaks to competitions to just remove that little bit of uncertainty from them. Do you remember there's that viral clip that goes around of like a peak match of the day, and there's like all 30 goals that evening were just screamers, and I missed that generation a bit where the difference it wasn't dictated by money so much. It was just so much uncertainty and chaos just going on in the league at all levels. It was just brilliant.
And we were happy when Sky took over because there were 3 live games every weekend, and now we're complaining that we can't see them all because we want to. And I mean, like, I understand it, right? I do understand it, but yeah, like those days of a Saturday afternoon, trying to find out the football scores if you were out shopping, like I remember doing that. Like you stand outside, and no one needs to do that anymore because it's all on their phone. And if anything, you've put your phone in your pocket because you don't want to know. Right, because you want to wait for match of the day. The good old days.
Because your parents aren't going to buy it for you when you're a kid. So you're on teletext, like doing the equivalent of refreshing teletext, just watching the score for 90 minutes. And then it evolved when I hit score and you could go onto BBC Sport and you could like refresh some really crappy feed every 5 minutes to see if you'd score. And the whole place would just erupt when it went live and you score. But the best bit about that era, going off on a tangent, wasn't all this bollocks transfer rumors swindling around you 24/7. You woke up in the morning, you bought the newspaper, and there was your gossip, and then you had to wait 24 hours for the next update. But I found that so much more exciting and less toxic because they had to cram every rumor into about 1 page, so there was just the good stuff, and it was just you just didn't have the aggregators and all the clickbait and all that stuff. I liked that period.
Well, this. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I do actually remember teletext. Like, I get I'm young. I mean, I do actually remember it vaguely. Right? Well, I'm bringing the average age down here. Okay, come on. I do actually remember it at my grandparents' house in Hampton. I remember seeing teletext when I'd have been like 6, maybe 5 or something. I do remember that and being like, what is that? And I'm just thinking, if I vaguely remember that, I must be like, my age must be the youngest at which someone remembers it. So in 5 years' 5 years' time, you have this conversation, kids aren't going to have a clue.
Like it's weird that because I live here now, like cricket is not a thing that enters my world, right? No one talks about cricket in Austria. Why would they, right? But when the Ashes come around, well, I can't watch it on TV because no one has the rights here. So I've had to do the whole BBC Sounds, listen to it on the radio. And it's been incredible. It's added to it so much more than like watching these guys just run 20 meters or I don't know how far they have to run to bowl the ball. I'm not a cricket person really, but like to actually just listen to the same people that I listened to 20, 30 years ago do exactly the same thing and have kind of that, I hate this word, the repartee, but the kind of banter between them. It was really kind of comforting to be back in an English world for a little bit. And so, yeah, maybe that's what I miss. But, we are full speed, like, Ange 24/7 between now and when he leaves, when he retires.
Yeah.
In, like, 20 years from now.
Exactly.
I have. Anyway, we've been going for about an hour and a half, and I'm very tired. So, going to end the show here. Going to say thank you, Jim, for coming on. Lovely to have you on.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Hope to see you again soon. HG, pleasure to have you on as ever.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think I'm back on Friday, so you'll see me again.
So everyone, watch out for the Friday show, and I'm sure that'll be a great show.
Hey, James, before quickly, Jim, tell us about Oso Spurs. Since I know a little bit, but
So we're another podcast and YouTube channel, so you can find us by searching Oso Spurs. I guess the main thing for us is we won't dive into debates about the ownership. That's kind of our promise, that we don't get involved with the in or out stuff. We just try kind of focus on the happy medium and what we feel is more within our influence as fans. But yeah, and we're big fans of the Cheese Room. So yeah, thanks for having us on, guys. Appreciate it.
No problem.
No worries. Pleasure to have you on. All I've got left to say is, come on, you Spurs.
Yes.
Up
And
Spurs.
I hate Arsenal. Come on.
Oh, I love it.